guys, so I'm starting a YouTube video series on boot making, and I'm learning every day, but I have learned a lot over the last 4 years of making footwear. And you always start with choosing a last, and then the first thing to do after you've chosen your last, which I might cover in future videos, but for now I'm assuming that you have a last that you want to use. And then we're going to make insoles, which will be custom fitted to the bottom of your last. It's important to choose a leather for hand welted soles that isn't too stiff and too dense. You'll just break awls when you're trying to inseam the welt to the insole and through the upper. It's just a nightmare. So I like to get something a little softer and loftier kind of structure to it. And then I use Baker insole leather. The harder type of leather, which you can get some good quality stuff that's harder than Baker leather, but I would only recommend it for doing a nail down construction or a stitch down construction, something that doesn't require you to hand sew and punch holes through the insole. So this is a set of cowboy boots with a nice square toe, and we're going to do hand welting on these. So I've soaked these insoles for about 20 minutes, and I like to do warm water, and they become really quite flexible now, which is great, because what we're going to do is we're going to let them dry out just enough so that they're not spongy, which is perfect. Right now I can't squeeze any water out of the insole, but it's still got all its malleability. And then I like to just put them on a towel just to soak up any excess that might be in there. Give them a little pat so that you don't have too much water out of the insoles. And then we're going to attach them to the bottom of the last with some nails, and then wrap them with a tensor bandage. Looks to be about 3 inches wide. You can use whatever you like to wrap the insoles. The key I find is to start in the waist of the shoe, right here in the middle of the arch, because that's the hardest part to get the insole to contour to that arch. The toe and the heel are really quite easy. The hard part is wrapping it and getting it to fully form to the middle of the last. And then you wrap always towards the arch first, never from the outside of the shoe, because then you'll end up, when you come around to the other side, you're pulling the insole of the leather down away from the last rather than up to it, which is our goal. We're going to get something nice and tight like that. You always want to cut yourself some slack when you're prepping your insoles. Give yourself a healthy 1/4 inch all the way around. I like to draw with a pencil and just make sure I've got a pencil width all the way around, and not cutting in too tight on the arch. We can trim all that in later and get it exactly the way we want it. So now I'm going to nail these to the lasts, and I'll bring you along in the next step. Alright, here we are at my jack stand. do use a fairly large nail to connect the insole to the last. And I will use 4 nails, working my way from the toe back to the heel. Making sure that you don't short yourself. Come back probably 1.5 inches, 2 inches from the very front of the last, and make sure that you're in the center of the last when you're driving your nail. Leave about 1/2 inch and tack that. Doesn't really matter whether you like to go forwards or backwards. Just note that the direction that you push your nail will also kind of pull the leather that direction. So I'll typically push my first nail forwards and then the rest of them back to pull tension on the last. And then you kind of roll it and put your finger where you want your next nail, making sure you got lots of room on each side. Now is the best time to make any adjustments that you might have to. We'll put one right under the ball of the last here. And then I'll put one right in the center of the arch. Some boots I'll use 3 nails. Boots with a higher arch, like a cowboy, I will use 4. And then if you have an iron nail plate, I like to fill in that nail plate with a bit of wood filler. And then that way on my insole, I don't have this leather fill in that void. So I filled that in with a 2-part wood filler, and then just sand it down so that it's even with the nail plate. That needs to be replaced periodically. It cracks and wears out. The last nail I'm actually going to push forwards, just so that it doesn't interfere with my pattern when I'm lasting. And so you can see, I've got lots of leather all the way around. I might actually trim some off the heel right now. To do that, I like to use a lip knife. I'm right-handed, so I'll use a right-handed lip knife. That's good enough for the tensor wrap to be able to do it. Every tensor wrap and handy safety pin to seal the deal when you're done. Start in the middle of the arch, wrap it nice and tight, get one full wrap. Catch it. And then as you're going, make sure that you're pinching down the edges to the last. Give yourself a little bit of overlap and work your way towards the toe of the boot. All right, so we're leaving the toe open for now. And then we're going to quickly wrap all the way back to the middle. Come around, make sure we're getting lots of tension on that arch. And now we're going to have to take it off with the jack stand. Over here. Continue my lap, so I'll come through the middle there. And then spread my tensor wrap back out because it gets bunched up. And coming over the heel. Leaving the heel open just like we did the toe. Come around back to the arch. And then here, you want to wrap toe to heel. I'll do that a couple times and really snug up on that. And then here, I will wrap around. Come back over the middle to tie everything off. Perfect. Have it. Safety pin works great. And then I will start in the arch. You can hear that it's tight to the last. If it sounds hollow when you're hammering, that's because there's air between the insole and the last, and you can hear it kind of clapping together. It should sound solid. At the very end, I like to make sure I'm hammering down the middle to make sure that I haven't created any bubbles when I'm wrapping. You're not beating too hard on it, you're kind of just tamping it into place. And as long as you have a leather that's suitable for insoling, with the thicker, stiffer leather, you'll have to soak it for longer. Would recommend using hot water to help it get formed up. With a softer, more pliable leather, it's much easier. And I would recommend using good materials that make your life easier instead of trying to build the toughest, heaviest thing possible. That's not necessarily the best way to make a boot. It won't be convenient for you to make it, and it won't be easy for the customer to wear it. And so it's a fine balance between comfort, durability, and then quality of your craftsmanship. Anyways, now I'll repeat for the second. And here you have it. 2 wrapped insoles, which, for demonstration purposes, I conveniently have an insole here. So you'll end up with a molded piece of leather that is, you know, the exact shape of the bottom of the last to work with. And then it just makes everything that much nicer when your finished product comes to light. Alright guys, that's insole making. Please comment if you have any questions, and stay tuned for more episodes.